sharing a super fun print tutorial using doodles from your bullet journal. Hi everybody, thank you for joining me today. I am Natasha of Natasha Miller Creates, and I am super excited to be sharing a tutorial with you today. This tutorial is inspired by my September cover page. My September theme was mushrooms, which I know isn't very original, but I really wanted to do mushrooms as part of a bigger idea that I have in my head for my surface pattern design side of what I do. So this was getting my practice in drawing my mushrooms, which is one of the reasons why I love creative journaling. It's kind of a way to trick my brain into practicing. So that's why I picked mushrooms. And today I'm super excited to be sharing this print with you. Now, I have linked all of the supplies that I use over on the blog, which is linked down below, so you can check that out. I do have the paper that I used as printables on my website. I wanted to be sure to include everything I use so that if this was something you wanted to try, you could just grab it and get going. I do want to encourage you to draw the mushroom and the leaf and the flower element on your own, but I do know that time is an issue. So I do have the printable for you if you wanted to cut it out, color it in, and practice that way. If you do use it, I'd love to see how you used it and how you incorporated it or recreated it or reimagined it. You can tag me over on Instagram at Natasha Miller Creates, or you could tag me down below and I will be happy to check it out. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. We're starting off sketching the mushroom, and that is so that we can center the mushroom on the page. We're carefully drawing the stalk. You're going to draw two lines that kind of dent in and then round out the bottom. And over top, you are adding a half circle, like a semicircle oval rather. And then over top of that, an even chunkier half circle. And then just bring in the lines from the smaller half circle on top of the stalk and connect it to the actual stalk. Now we're starting on our flower, super simple. Again, you're going to draw a half circle and cap it off with a straight line. And you're going to start adding your leaves. So you're going to draw ovals with pointed edges. As you can see, I have about 5 or 6 there, adding some in the gaps between the main ones in front. And then we're just going to go in and draw our leaves. So I draw a vine to begin with, and then I go and add my leaf shapes in. You can make those leaves any shape you want, whatever you're comfortable with. I feel like we all have this inherent style from when we were kids to draw leaves. So, just embrace it and go with it. Part of this whole journey is also just enjoying your style and finding your style. So definitely don't be too hard on yourself as we work through this. For adding color, I am using Tombows. You can see me coloring here. I'm very carefully adding in the layers, making sure that there's minimal overlap. And that is because we're going to go in with the same color and add some shadows and lines to make it more interesting. So I'm just carefully trying not to overlap the colors. I really do enjoy working with Tombows. I don't use them as much as I used to, but you can definitely play with some fun variations. And this is where you see me adding in some shadows. So for me, the sun always comes from the upper left corner. I feel like all artists and illustrators have their own concept of where their sun is coming from, and mine is the top left corner. So I am adding shadows to the bottom right of my photo. You don't have to add shadows, of course. It's whatever you're comfortable with. I do encourage you to experiment. So if shadows is something you want to try, definitely go for it. I'm now coloring in the stalk, and here I'm adding my shadows again, just under the cap of the mushroom, and then kind of drawing some lines to even out the shadows so that it's not too much of a obvious line, I guess. And now I'm using a lighter color Tombow. I have them linked down below or on the blog post down below, so you can definitely check that out. And I colored it in, and I used the felt tip point to add the dots to the middle of the flower. And that's, again, it's just to add some texture and dimension to it. You'll see as this progresses, I'm adding in the dark gills of the mushroom now too, and some shadows, and you'll see me adding the gills in here in a second. I'm just using the bullet point side of the tombow. I do want to emphasize trusting the process. Full transparency, I wanted to give up at one point. It wasn't quite how I wanted it to look, but I decided to just keep going with it and adding. Once I start adding the pen and the white Posca, you'll see how it transforms, but definitely trust the process and don't be too hard on yourself. I really do want to keep emphasizing that for you. I'm using a lighter yellow for the petals and then going in with the darker color to do the outlines. This is just a style that I like. It's completely up to you. I do end up using a black marker, and I found that the darker lines kind of would peek out from the black marker and just gave it more dimension. So definitely experiment and play when you're putting all of this together. And yeah, play and experiment with your styles. For coloring in the leaves, I had a lot of fun. I outlined the leaves and then I just drew kind of circles around the inside, and I thought that was kind of nice texturing for the leaves too. Instead of where I was carefully making sure not to overlap the pen, I just added texture to the leaves. And I go in with the bullet point and add some texturing as well, which you'll see shortly. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Coloring again. A lot of my stuff I do digitally, or I've been using acrylographs lately a lot. So it was really fun to play with markers again and experiment with markers. Or I guess Tombows, they're not really markers, they're brush pens. And it wouldn't be a video without my cat. So it was really hard to color in while she was exploring what I was doing. In another video, I was painting and she ended up smudging my paint. So that was really frustrating, but she's just a cutie who wants some attention and cuddles, especially while I'm working. And I can't really evict her. My office, or the space I'm using as an office, doesn't really have a door. So she just kind of comes in and does whatever she wants. And believe it or not, I did cut a huge chunk of video where it's just her love bombing me. So I'm sorry she's still around, but I hope you find her cute. So I'm outlining the brown areas with the darker brown that I have. I've really enjoyed outlining the shape with the darker shade of the color of the shape, if that makes sense. So for the lighter yellow, I outlined with the darker yellow. And I think it's a really cool effect. And I'm really happy with how things look. They don't look as, I don't want to say harsh, because I actually do really like that look too, that like pop art look. And you'll see what I'm going to end up doing here. It ends up giving it that pop art look. But I do really like it. I'm just outlining the red. These two reds were actually a little bit too close to each other, but it was already too late and I didn't want to have to find another red, but I thought it did a pretty good job of doing the outline and giving it a little bit more dimension. So I couldn't find a black Sharpie. I don't use them in my notebooks, so I don't know where I put it, but I did have a black Copic marker, and the Copic marker I had has a brush tip. So I ended up outlining my image with the brush tip of the black Copic marker, and it actually ended up looking really cool. I wasn't able to get the lines perfectly the same because of the brush tip. Sometimes the line went a little bit thicker, and I thought this was a super cool effect. So I just went with it. And I was able to trim down where I felt the lines were a little bit too thick, because we're going to end up cutting this out. And I just cut down the lines where they were too thick. But I'm not saying go buy a Copic. Again, my first choice was a Sharpie. I just couldn't find one. Use what you have. But the Copic or the brush tip outline was really cool. The reason why I wanted to use an alcohol-based marker for this is just so that it would sit well over top of the what we'd already colored in. I feel like the black brush pens, or when it's a water-based ink or a dye ink, it tends to it's not as opaque as I'd like. So that's why I wanted the alcohol ink. This is a disclaimer. If you are doing this in your journal, do not use this in your journal. It will bleed through the pages. I'm very strict about not using alcohol-based inks in your notebooks. That's exactly why I couldn't find my Sharpie in the first place. That, and I hide them from the kids so that they don't use the alcohol inks. They just moved out of the age of drawing on walls. So I made sure there was no alcohol-based inks anyway, because those don't come with walls as easily. So now we are going to go in and add some details. I'm using a Papermate Flare to do this. You can also use the back of a black Sharpie if Sharpies are what you have. And I'm just kind of outlining or going over where the veins of the leaves are. I went over the little dots that I put in the middle of the flower. And then I'm just going to add some fun lines where the shadows are. And that's just to create more dimension and more visual interest in the piece. And I do the same. I ended up grabbing a white Posca paint pen. And I did the same with the Posca paint pen. And I really liked how it looked. I added in more highlights in the piece as well. I feel this is such a subtle, easy way to add more visual interest and dimension to your piece. Like, it really doesn't take that much extra effort or thought to put it in, but I feel like it goes a long way in terms of looking good. Now, I do want to give a tip. When you are planning on using a paint pen over top of colored work, make sure that the ink has dried, or give the ink some time to dry. What ended up happening on top of my mushroom was the red was still wet, and so or not wet, but the ink hadn't dried completely. And so the Posca paint pen ended up turning a little bit pink, or pinker than I wanted. So I just went back over top of it with the white Posca paint pen, which you see me do here. Now we are cutting the pieces for our background. This is a printable that I have available on my website that I was referring to in the introduction. So head on over, it's linked down below, and you can grab that if you want to recreate this piece, or just, I don't know, add this paper to your collection if you are a collager or a scrapbooker and you like this paper. So we have a kind of old-timey written letter, and then this polka dot print paper that we're going to use. I'm using a Canson Mixed Media Art Journal. It's 5.5 by 8.5 inches, so it's just the smaller one, and I love using this for experimenting. Right now for the tutorial, I am busy scrunching up some paper. I purchased newspaper print paper from Michael's. It was in the clearance section, so I grabbed some. I have scanned in the color so that you can get the color yourself, because I scanned it in and used it as a printable. And if you just print that on printer paper and scrunch it up like I have, it's going to work just as well. If you have newspaper that you want to use, absolutely go for it. And then I just glued it down with glue tape, Tombow tape runners. And yeah, I thought it would look really cool. I really liked the effect. And then just starting to place my pieces, tear up my printed paper, and just getting a feel for how I want the layout to look. And I was happy with how it turned out overall. I'm having the writing in the bottom left corner. and being offset by the polka dots in the top right corner. And now we're going to cut out the image that we colored in. As you can see, I'm deciding where I want the lines to be thicker, where I don't want them to be thicker. I'm sorry that I'm cutting this off camera. I try to remember to cut it in focus just so that you can kind of see, but you can't actually see anything. So I just edited out the cutting portion for you. And now I'm just adding little bits of glue all around just so that I can get it as flat as possible, given that the background's kind of uneven. And since I've been stamping so much in my last few videos, I decided to give you guys a break. And we are using alphabet stickers for the lettering or the typography for this print. This is just from the dollar store. It's 6 sheets of letters, which I thought was pretty good because normally I don't like using letter stickers in case I run out, but I don't think this can be an issue. So the word we're using is renew, and I picked renew because that's what a mushroom does. It plays, well, mushrooms play a vital role in the renewal of tree populations, and so they help with nutrient uptake and disease resistance. And so I just thought renew was kind of a cool not play on that, but great word to have on something like this. And for a lot of people, if renew is your word of the year, then this could be a fun print that you could use to show that. So I just thought it was an appropriate word. I always default to grow. I kid you not, guys, anytime I'm doing something like this, I'm like, grow, and I've done it so many times. But let's get back to the tutorial. I added a border on the top left, as you can see, and that's just to kind of balance out the bottom right, especially with the typography being so heavy. And I thought I'd make the typography more interesting by just drawing a thin line, monoline, around the edge as a shadow, and then using a white jelly roll to add some highlights. So just super simple, but again, it ties it into the layout as a whole, and it's a similar style to what we've done with our mushroom and flower and vine. So I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. I had a lot of fun creating this, so I hope you have a lot of fun too and you follow along. I didn't want to speed things up too much because I wanted you to be able to follow along as well. And if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to leave them down below. Thank you so much for your time today, and I will see you in the next one. For more bullet journal content, feel free to check out this video, or for more art journal content, I have another video for you to check out as well.